Andrew Ray, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Honestly, let's just give a little background of why you're in Pensacola right now. I showed up to a Christmas party on Friday evening with some old college friends, and there you were. You surprised everybody and came to Pensacola. I guess you only surprised me because you were staying with Evan.
Yeah, they kind of had to know.
Yeah.
I was going to stay at their house. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and with you being in town, I was like, you know what? This is perfect. I'm going to have you on the podcast on Monday. So I love it. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, man.
And you are doing big things where you're at. So to start off, for those who don't know you, Andrew Ray, let's give us a little bit of a background, and we'll just move on from there.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's see. How far back you want me to go?
The day you were born.
Oh, man. So let's see. It was raining outside.
Wow, I'm surprised you know that information, members.
I have no idea. So yeah, let's see. So I grew up in the Midwest, Cincinnati, Ohio area. Did not have any kind of like business background, anything like that. My dad's actually a pastor, so very, very blue collar kind of pastor where he had like multiple like full-time jobs to kind of make it all work. So I knew at a relatively young age that I wanted to be in business, wanted to start my own company, do something entrepreneurial, but I had no idea what that actually meant.
Yeah.
So
that's such a broad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I ended up in Pensacola. Ended up here for school. So I knew a couple people that went to the school. It was a fairly affordable school, and they had a good finance program.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, my thinking was, well, I want to be an investment banker because investment bankers make a lot of money. I can, make a lot of money, save my money, start a company when I'm 30 or something like that.
I see no problem here.
Mm-mm. Yeah, exactly. But I think let's fast forward a couple years in. I was in school, and my brother-in-law, only entrepreneur I'd ever really known at that point, he and his family sold their company. So at that point, I was kind of looking around, and he approached me and was like, hey, like, why don't we go out and do something together? So me, him, and another person, we decided to start a company called Olympus LSV, which we basically designed and manufactured low-speed electric vehicles. So think our big bet was in the neighborhood vehicle space. So the thinking being that with what was happening with Uber and Lyft, and as well as like smaller transportation, like with the scooters and the bikes, that neighborhood transportation had not changed a lot. So specifically in suburban areas. So the areas where it was changing the most was in metropolitan areas.
Sure.
We thought that in neighborhoods, there was going to be a much bigger trends towards these very small compact vehicles that were more affordable than a traditional car, but still, much more, there was a sex appeal to them over like a golf cart, but much lower carbon footprint. And we thought that the future of neighborhood vehicles was going to change and go in that direction much more in the long run. So one of my co-founders was a mechanical engineer. He designed something. We got it manufactured with some partners in China. And went to market. We also did utility vehicles and golf carts as well, largely because we knew the market for what we wanted to do was pretty nascent.
Sure.
So raised about $1 million and proceeded.
And this was, what year of college were you in when this happened?
This was starting right between my sophomore and junior year.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, because that's when I first met you, was your first semester.
Yeah, my junior year, you met me right when this was in the very early stages of happening.
So I got to kind of witness some of this. So continue with that history.
Yeah, so let's see. So that was, so I was probably about 20 when this was starting. So, and then... So we started this thing, raised about $1 million, and eventually we did pretty well. Our first 7 months after launching, we were doing almost $2 million a year in revenue. But what we found is that our original thesis around urban transportation changing, especially like suburban transportation, was early at best and wrong at worst. Verdict's still out. There's still some interesting startups that had similar ideas in the space, but we were just way too early. So we ended up with a business that was making money and could definitely get to profitability and even be sustainable, but it was very capital intensive, and the product categories that were really doing well were much more competitive, lower margins. It was just not the kind of business that we had signed up to build or that our investors had invested in.
It was much more of a long-term thing.
Yeah, not even long-term, but it was becoming a lifestyle business. It wasn't going to be a venture-backed company that could just absolutely blow up and be very, very big and very successful in a very short period of time. So we kind of had some internal discussions as co-founders, and ultimately ultimately decided to wind the business down. So I stepped away in 2019 around probably like late winter, early spring, to basically just stepped away from the day to day, largely because I needed to get a job, because I'd been, instead of doing like the internship thing that a lot of other people in school did, I basically was working on this company, not taking a paycheck, just working at it. Like, we had raised money, but the money was to go to operations, not to paying the founders at that point in time. So we had employees and all of that. So the employees got paid, our vendors got paid, everybody got paid but us. And
that's the risk you take as a founder,
So my two co-founders, they were a little more established in life, so could handle going longer without income than I could. I had to kind of figure my life out. So I walked away from the day-to-day, but ultimately that company, just to close the loop, sold earlier this year. So we were able to get the investors their money back, which was a lot of startups. I think it's about, especially most startups fail, about 90% of them. Just completely fail and lose all the money. So though we were not successful by any means,
the fact that you got the investors their money back 100%. Says something.
Yeah, just that taking somebody else's capital is a big deal, and that's a big responsibility. And just being able to at least get them their dollars back was a big deal to us. So but after that point, I ended up, I knew I wanted to stay in the startup world. I didn't really want to be a banker at that point. I liked finance, but I wanted to stay closer to the entrepreneurial side of things.
Because that's what interests you in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So I was looking around trying to figure out what I was going to do, knowing that I was very late to the game. And I basically decided kind of the options were startups or venture capital firms. And the reason why venture capital interested me was it's kind of the intersection of technology, finance, and startups. So they're basically the money behind most of the big startups that we see today, like companies like Uber, Facebook, even Apple. Like most of the major technology companies today were at one point in time very small companies funded by venture capitalists. So that was an industry that interested me, and it would be a way to kind of see it from the investing side and learn more too, because I wasn't ready to start something else, and I was just looking for a good place to land, learn, and stay in the game, if that made sense. Yeah. So
rather than just going and finding a job that'll pay the bills, but doesn't help you in any way.
Or even doing something like investment banking, I just would rather go closer to something earlier that I wanted to do. So or then there was just the option just go join a startup. So I was looking at one of those options, and then basically let's see. So over the course of, I want to say like 4 to 6 months, I just networked my ass off. Can we say that?
You can. Here? It's okay.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah, you're fine.
I just networked as hard as I could, met as many people as I could, and ultimately got a few offers at some different startups and venture firms, mainly around the Midwest and Southeast, one of which being in Columbus, Ohio. So that it was a venture capital firm and venture studio in Columbus, based in Columbus, though they have a presence around the country, called Ecove Capital. So I joined them and started in around June of 2019, and have been there ever since. So about a little over a year and a half now. So, and so that's my story to date, man.
That's how you got to where we are right now, sitting at this table.
That was a good rundown.
Yeah, that was a really good rundown.
Very efficient.
So let's dive into when you say you were networking like crazy for a few months. What were you doing? Because everybody has heard it, right? I mean, there's no jobs. I can't find a job. Yeah, and there's so many people I know who have had that unfortunate same experience. But I also have known a lot of people who I've seen working as hard to find a job as they would in a regular job. I think a lot of people just submit applications and expect something to happen. Right. So what did you do to make sure that you weren't one of those people?
Yeah, so I think one thing that a lot of people miss is there's things like Indeed and Monster and even LinkedIn and some of these other things that a lot of people, they see job postings or even like on a company website, and they fill out the application, maybe do a cover letter, put their resume in there, and they focus on that, and then they just spam that out. And I think that's just the wrong game to play, especially if you, for whatever reason, like didn't go to a top tier school or something like that.
Your resume may not be as impressive.
Right. It may not be as impressive, and because the thing is that a lot of those things are going, especially the bigger the company, the more likely it is to be going through an algorithm before a human even sees it. And then even if it's not, even if you get in front of the eyes of a recruiter, they don't have time to go through by detail each resume. So they're just looking for something to make their job easier and to get high quality candidates in for actual interviews. So even if you did go to a great school, you're playing a numbers game at that point, and it is a little bit difficult to get in the door that way. So, and in my case, with not having done internships, I didn't have, my resume was just a little odder than a lot of traditional college students coming out of college. So while that was a disadvantage on just applying for jobs, it was an advantage if I could get in a room and talk to someone. So
because you had a lot more experience than a college grad would have.
Exactly. And really at the end of the day, people don't hire you because your resume is cool. People hire you and give you an opportunity because they think you're worth investing in. They think you can add value.
Do the job right. Yeah.
They think you can add value. Even if you might take some investment, they think in the long run you're going to add value and help them as a business. And then number two is they think that long term you could, maybe have a ton of potential to really add, like more than just what today's position is, if they think you could grow within the company. Yeah. So to show that, though, you're not going to show that on paper. You have to get in the room, you have to get in front of someone, and you have to tell your story. It's sales. So and also one last piece there is that just so much of the job market is, there's this term that floats around called the hidden job market. And most of the best jobs never, ever, ever hit some kind of job board, recruiting board, whatever. Most of the time, and even if they do, a lot of times they're already filled, and this is just a formality. Or it's like, oh yeah, like people are going to be able to apply, but we already know a couple people are going to apply that we're really going to look at. Yeah. And that happens all the time. And most people just don't realize that they were out of the game before they even filled out their application. So
explain the hidden job market. What do you mean?
So the hidden job market, I can't take credit for the term. I've seen it float around the internet a little bit, but it's basically these jobs that a lot of times, get filled before somebody even posted. So perfect example, I saw a company whose founder posted that they're hiring engineers and product people on Twitter just the other day, and I shot him a direct message and just about candidates, and then like what they were looking for. And now I have reached out to a couple of my friends that I think would be great fits for his company, and they're getting referred over there by me, and they've already got a step in without ever having to fill an application online, just because I saw this thing on Twitter, and next thing you know, like we're referring people into that position. And that happens, and now that's in like the online world, but even like just offline, if you're having lunch with a business colleague and they're like, yeah, in the next couple months I think we're going to need to hire a product designer or something like that, you're like, oh, my buddy is a great product designer.
Much more referral based.
Yeah, so a lot of it's just referrals. And then because at the end of the day, big people a lot of times are making recommendations based off their network, or if it's not their direct network, they know a guy that knows a guy, and it happens that way.
Well, it's the same concept, just on a smaller scale, as asking for recommendations for something on Facebook. Hey, I need somebody to tint my car windows. I'm going to trust someone that you guys send to me more than I would send some random guy who calls me.
100%.
So I think it's that same kind of concept. Well, and it's the same thing with investment deals in the MLS as well. Like for investors, a lot of people, by the time deals hit the actual MLS and they're listed, a lot of times the best ones have been picked over, and brokers take the best ones and feed their own investor database. So if you see a deal in the MLS, number one, there's an insane amount of competition, and number two, like you said, you've already missed out on the ones you didn't even realize you missed out on. Right. That's interesting. Yeah. So the job market is the same way.
Yeah, it's finding your way to those opportunities, and then and then just having a way to, how do you don't want to play the same game everyone else is playing. So if
That's
everybody
true
else,
in every area of business,
100%. So tons of people are going to fill out applications, but how many people are going to put in the work to figure out somebody's email and also say, hey, I applied for this, and here are the reasons why I think I could really add value, or even just even if you're not sure if this company's hiring or not, just trying to find a way, like, what value can I bring to these people before they've even hired me? If you find a way to do something valuable for them before they've even given you a job, you've just set yourself apart from the vast majority of candidates, because you're already helping them. You're already adding value before they're paying you. And it also just shows what kind of person you are, because most people are too selfish to do that. Yeah. And like you said, initiative. So it shows you're also a self-starter, and you're not just sitting there waiting for a job.
Essential. Absolutely essential.
100%.
And like you just said, finding a way to stand apart, that's the most important thing. So doing that work to get out there in front of people. And I don't know, this is something that my broker, Mark Downey, has said time after time after time. He says, if I find someone who I trust, I know they'll be loyal to the business and work hard, I'll hire them and find a place to put them. I'll hire them even if I don't have a position, and I'll find a place for them because good people are that difficult to find. And I remember the first time he said that, I was like, no. And then he took me through every person in the office, and all of them he hired, even if he was just reaching out a little bit and didn't feel like he should, he hired them and found a place for them. And now we have an autonomous, an office and a leasing department that runs on its own, and everybody's really, really good at their jobs. And I remember thinking, wow, that's the truth. I mean, there's no business owner I know who's not starved for talented people, talented, hardworking people. So I think that goes exactly with what you just said. If you provide value before they even, before you're even hired, or if you reach out and you're the one who is looking for a position, I think that gives you so much better of an opportunity than just, hey, I saw this listing on Indeed.com and here's my resume, the same as everybody else. It's
definitely.
You're standing
like
out.
You said too, it's not even just about being a hard worker. Anybody can go find a hard worker. It's about, like you said, providing value, finding a way that you can make yourself important in their eyes. And I think a lot of it is overlooked with people that think, well, I can work hard. I put in 9 to 5 and I work 3 jobs and this and that, and I'm still not getting anything from it. And that's understandable. It's hard, working your butt off and not getting anywhere. But you got to look at where exactly you're putting that value in, like you 100%. Said, you got to reach out to the right people and know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And to that point, like even if all of those things are true, they don't know that. Yep. It's very hard to get that across in just a resume. So, but if you're able to get in front of them and have a conversation, that can come out when you get a chance to tell your story, but you have to get that opportunity in the first place.
That's a great point.
I love that. That's awesome. Honestly, I want to clip that where he was talking about, getting in front of people and have you found their emails and things like that. So I don't know what we need to do to.
Yeah. I mean, I can quickly run through like that email process if that's helpful.
Yeah, actually if you wouldn't mind, because we could splice it together probably in a different, looking for bite-sized things we can put on Instagram. So.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, on the email process, it's relatively simple. Most companies, so there's some actual like tools that you can use that are typically paid for to actually, like Rocket Reach, you can pay for it and find a lot of people's email addresses just through paying for it. But honestly, I would say just save money. There's a tool called Hunter.io that will give you the format of a company's basically like their email address format and what they typically use. So you just put in the website URL and it spits out like what their structure is. So if they typically do first name, last name at whatever.com, it'll tell you that, or if they're using a few different ones. And then at that point, then you just gotta, if you know the person's name, it's that simple.
Try different combinations.
Yeah. And then at worst case, in some instances, they, you won't be able to do that, or maybe for whatever reason, they don't have the input on that. Then you're really just guessing. So you look at, well, what's the URL? So it's going to typically be, at, michaelwarner.com or whatever the business name is. And then you just have to try, well, what's common. So let's try first name at, let's try first last name at, let's try the first initial of their first name, then last name
first
at.
letter and then last name.
There's probably somewhere between 2 and 6 of them that are very, very common. And you try all of those and you'll probably get it on the first or second try most of the time.
Yeah.
And then you just write some kind of cold email. And I typically, early on, I used to try to just get a conversation with some people. And it's pretty tough when you're a student, especially because you don't feel like there's anything you can do to add value. Now I try to stay away from that unless I already have somebody that can introduce me to that person, or
a little more of a warm handoff.
Some kind of, So what I typically try to do now, if I'm just cold outreaching to someone, is have some kind of clearly articulated reason as to why I can add value and why this would be a mutually beneficial conversation. Or maybe I don't even ask for a conversation in front. Like for instance, if this is, maybe I just do something to help them right off the bat, and then maybe I don't even have something I want from them. This is just more big picture networking, but I'm just trying to build a relationship. So I do something of value for that person right up front. We have a quick email exchange and move on, and then maybe I reach out again down the road. So there's a ton of different approaches, but reach out to people, find some kind of way to add value, and there's so many different kinds of ways you could do that. So if let's say you design websites, cold email someone, and then say, hey, I will redesign your website and do like the first 2 or 3 pages or some kind of mock-up for free. And if you like it, will you pay me to do the whole website? Yeah,
or even, hey, I looked at your current website. Here's some tips I think that could maybe help you with
That's another good one.
Or ranking or anything like that. That's so important because, I mean, you've seen now that you manage my email inbox, there's so many people who just email me all the time. Hey, I do real estate photography. Here's my pricing. And it's like, well, cool, appreciate that, and
Right.
it gets deleted.
Even better though if that person emailed you and said, "Hey, I took a look at your website, love what you're doing, this, that, and the other," and then showed you like where they actually went ahead and made a web page and some kind of page builder that was already better than what you currently had going on, and then articulated why they made this and this change.
Yep.
Personalized it.
That's exactly right.
You would
If
be much more likely to respond to that than some rando saying, "Hey, I do websites."
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. And someone who took initiative to do that, I would want them handling things in my business because I know that they care. I mean, I can always go out and find someone to do X, Y, and Z. I'm sure there's 50 different people who would do it and do it really well for a fair price.
100%.
But, you know, if somebody were to reach out and show that and say, hey, here's what I do, and I do this really well, and here's proof, I'd be like, well, I'd at least write their name down and save it for a future time.
Yeah.
100%.
So I think that's really interesting. And I think that's something a lot of people don't do is think of, okay, this is what I want. I want a job. I'm in school and I need a job. How can I email people and get introductions with and make connections with these people? Well, let me figure out what their domain name may be or their email address. Nobody does that.
I think that's step one is just getting the hustle to do things other people aren't doing.
Yep.
And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that,
But who cares?
If I looked back on some of the cold emails I sent, I'm sure I'd cringe today. But I got better and I improved. And you're getting tight feedback loops and seeing quickly, okay, this is not working, but this really is working.
You can adjust
and you can
adjust.
Quickly. But then when you get that hustle piece and you just start doing things and trying things, then you really can get into where I think what really becomes important to go to the next level is shifting your mindset. A lot of people come in there, this is what I need, and I need this, and I need that, and I need, and at the end of the day, like business, life, it's all a mutual thing.
Yep.
And thinking more, I think taking a give first mindset of how can I add value to this person? How did I give this person without even knowing, like, I don't know what I may never get anything back in return from this. And I'm not, doing this because immediately after I'm going to get X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
I'm doing this partially because this is the kind of person I want to be, but also in the long run, I think that this will come back to me.
It's an investment in the future.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Even we've talked about this before on the podcast, just how you kind of started to say this just a second ago, but coming into the business world, no one really cares. And it's unfortunate to hear that, but no one cares about you or the product that you offer, things like that, unless they have a direct need for it. But we've talked about this as far as getting your real estate license. Okay, you get your real estate license and you're like, oh, this is awesome. Well, but no one really cares. The deals don't come to you.
100%.
You have to provide that value and find ways that you can, and so giving first, like you said, it's an investment in the future. And I think that's such a better way to approach it rather than, like you said, I need, because in the end, no one really cares. And they're not going to help you if you're not, think if the roles are reversed, you're like, I need, well, why is anyone else going to help you when 100%. You're not approaching it from that same perspective?
I think it also it gets to, yes, it's definitely like a long-term investment and it will return to you manyfold in my opinion and be a great return. But it's also like so many people out there are so self-consumed that they honestly really don't care very much about the success and how things are going for other people.
Yeah.
So if you just go as far to you show that you genuinely do care about other people, it's tremendously powerful because people want to genuinely be in business and to have relationships with, could be friendships, could be a business relationship with other people that are genuine and care, and they're just good human beings.
Yeah.
So like I think a really great analogy of this in a networking context or just any kind of business relationship is leave your relationships in some kind of credit. So you don't want to be overdrawing like a bank account on that relationship, just always making asks and never adding value. I don't think that this analogy works for everything, but it's good I want to know that I've added more value than I've taken from every person in my life. And while I may have not achieved that, I do my best to get there. That
that
I've
comes
given
across.
more than I've taken from someone else.
Yeah,
people can pick up on that right away. They
exactly.
have like a radar for it.
Right. You can just tell a lot of times too. Like there's so many people that market online or do content marketing or even just that you meet and talk to. And a lot of times it's almost never the words being said, but there's just some thing that you can't get past that when someone's genuine and when they're not.
Yeah.
So, but if you're genuine, you don't have to worry about it because you don't have to try to fake it because you just are.
Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. And it doesn't take that much effort really to just, do whatever you can and come from a place of giving and
well, it's kind of like what you were saying with, or I guess it was you with photography, how can, let me look at your website. Here's the things that I think you can improve. I've invested time in you. I'm maybe you can just take my list and run with it, and I won't help you, but I could be the one to help you because here's how I think these things could be improved.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you said, it's giving that time. You're probably not going to get anything back from it most of the time, and it sucks, but at the same time, you're shooting your shot,
100%.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I don't know. I agree with you that just bringing the hustle, and just putting in the work, you're going to look back and be like, oh, I did this wrong. I mean, when I first started making cold calls, it was the same way.
Yeah.
It's like, man, if I listened to my original conversations, I would probably go hide in a closet.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And you grow and you get better. And then, you achieve what you're looking for. And it's just something that everybody has to get over,
100%.
So, well, you obviously have a big emphasis on networking. And it's awesome to hear how that has, translated into being able to find a job for yourself where you enjoy what you're doing. And actually tell us a bit about your job at eCove, right?
Yeah, eCove Capital.
Okay, so what are you doing kind of on a daily basis there? What does your job look like?
Yeah, so I think one of the nice things about this industry is that every day can be a little bit different. So it's not one of those things where, I don't know, like I don't show up and put in data to a spreadsheet, all day, every day or anything like that.
Yeah.
So so I guess like the easiest way to transition to what I do would be talking first about what the firm does. So we're a venture capital / venture studio firm. So traditional venture capital firms, they raise money into some kind of fund, much like a real estate or a private equity investor would, and then they invest into startup companies. So that's the core traditional venture capital model. Ours is kind of like a much more focused or alternative version of that. So we do have a fund, we do raise capital, and we do invest in startup companies. But most of that capital is tagged for companies that we've already launched through our venture studio. So it's very closely related to our venture studio. We do on occasion do some like very early stage, more like hands-off investments, but those have been exceptions, not the rule.
Okay.
So our core focus has been that we typically invest in startups found and invest in startups coming out of university technology research. So every year about $70 to $80 billion goes into schools like Ohio State, Carnegie Mellon, really just schools all around the country.
That's 70 to 80 billion with a B.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a big number. I think last year it was like 77 point something. So it's a very big number. So that, like, for instance, Ohio State, which is probably the biggest school in Columbus where I'm at, and one of the bigger schools in the country, they'd get like $1 billion a year alone. So a lot of research funding. On average, about 1% to 2% of that ever actually becomes a product or a company. So a significant amount of that is just, it's dollars going in and nothing of long-term economic value is necessarily coming out. So, and there's a few reasons for that, but some of it cultural, some of it, just structural issues within the system. But for one of just the biggest reasons is that most researchers, they're PhDs, they're brilliant technologists, but they are not entrepreneurs, they're not operators, they're not CEOs.
It's a completely different mindset.
Totally different game. It's a different game. It's a different skill set. And just most of them, they want to do research. They don't want to operate and start a company. So where we come in is we will provide the capital and the operational expertise, because even if the research is great, it's not investable to the earliest stage venture capitalists that will invest in just an idea that's on like a little more than a napkin. Have to believe in the founding team, because in those early days, it's the founders that make it happen. It's not like the technology can be great, but many great technology startups have failed because the founding team wasn't able to execute. So you have to be able to invest in that team. It's a huge part of any kind of success. So we'll bring the team and the capital to actually get some of those things off the ground. So we'll typically partner with the researcher and the university. We'll license the technology out of the university and then found a company around it. And then typically we've got in-house resources so that are able to take care of some of the basic business functions that you need a little of, but not a lot of in the early days of a company, like, accounting, marketing, not so much marketing, but like HR and branding and things like that. And then we've just got those in-house that we handle for a lot of our very early stage portfolio companies. And then we will typically assign a launch executive that's typically an entrepreneur in residence, and they will be the launch CEO of that company. And then we'll typically hire maybe a few different like engineers or something like that, depending on what kind of product it is, to work on the technology.
Cool.
But the goal being in those early days to we'll put the initial like check into the company from our fund, and then typically raise at least matching capital from other investors. So that could be angel investors, family offices, other venture capital firms, and then we'll launch the company. And the goal with that initial funding is to get enough validation both on the business market side as well as the technology side to raise then additional funding and eventually build a full-blown executive team around it and spin it out and send it off on its way where it'll be more independent and away from our firm. So our plan is not to operate tons and tons of companies forever. Our goal is to launch them and then get them into the hands of the right people to continue operating them. So the goal is ultimately for that company to go and be a successful exit through some kind of M&A transaction, so selling the company, or through initial public offering. So, going and listing on the New York Stock Exchange or something like that. So most of the time that'll likely end up being an M&A transaction, but IPOs do happen in some cases, right? Like with Airbnb going public recently. So we've been around as a firm for about 6 years or so now, and we've done that.
That's really not a long time.
It's not, especially in this industry. So, but we've launched, I want to say a little over 16 companies now, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
And the companies have, hundreds of millions of dollars in valuation right now, and we've brought in over $100 million of outside capital. Has been raised by our companies, not just from our fund, but from other investors around the country and around the world. So we're based in Columbus, but we've done launched companies out of research at Ohio State, worked with schools like Carnegie Mellon, Cincinnati. We've got a presence in New York, Miami, and also a presence in Brazil. So
cool. Yeah. Wow. So having said that, then what are you doing?
Yeah. So within that, my role's pretty much been around the investment side of things. So a lot of the sourcing a lot of the different like technologies that are in our pipeline. So basically meeting with researchers, meeting with the teams on their licensing offices, and just looking through the technology that they have in their pipeline, and then matching that with areas that we think are investable, or maybe theses that we've developed around a certain industry, and where a certain product would be very innovative in that industry, and then really just basically trying to put together what's a good investment for us and what's a good company to launch for us. So sourcing that, and then but doing a lot of market research around like where we actually want to launch companies and invest capital around. And then and that can just look like different things on any given day, but it's all the sourcing, the research, the due diligence, and then ultimately getting those things through investment committee, and then getting the capital both from our fund and other investors together to launch and invest in that company when we do launch it. So it's pretty much, and then obviously we're licensing from the universities because the technology is owned by the university, so got to negotiate with them first to actually get the deal done. So pretty much everything involved in that process has been my job for most of my time at Eco. So that's why I say it can look different on any given specific deal or opportunity or any given day. Really, it can just be across the board. And we're a relatively small firm. It's not like we're some massive corporation. So I've also done just different things to support, later stage portfolio companies that just might need some support in fundraising or in some kind of, research or due diligence, or even supporting in some kind of business development efforts on occasion, or even just like internal things like recruiting interns. Like I've done plenty of just one-off things, but the core of it's been around that, sourcing, doing research, and then, launching companies around that.
That's cool. I love that. It sounds like you're kind of, like you said, every day is different. You're kind of a jack of all trades,
for sure.
Putting together, people and doing a lot of research. That's exciting. So do you feel like what you learned in college, and maybe this is a bad question, but what you learned in college, how much of a learning curve was there when you first started? I mean, did you feel kind of prepared, or what was it like?
I think I felt relatively prepared, but a large portion of that was because of the experience I had starting my own company, less so actually what I learned in college. Like
Gotcha.
there were some useful things, but to be honest, I think most of the preparedness came from that already having been in the job world a little bit, more so from what I learned in school.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. And I mean, that's the thing about college is it can help you, but also you have to be doing your own kind of thing
For sure.
while you're in school.
For sure. I think a lot of it, some schools do better at this than others, but you have to like honestly just work on side projects, get internships, go be willing to go work for free and get experience for someone, or even start your own side company, but find some way to get actual experience and to learn actual skills.
Yeah.
Because it'll make what you're learning in the classroom that much more valuable too.
And make it real too while you're
Right.
learning it,
Right.
That's really
And it'll
interesting.
also show you what's bull and what's not. Because some of what they teach you in school is just going to be bull. Like there's things I look back on and I'm like that, like no one does that. Like, you know what I mean?
That's from a textbook somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the classic thing, right?
Right.
Maybe we're having a teacher from
We know
PCC
how you feel
come
about
on.
us.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're having a teacher from one of my marketing teachers come on
Okay.
on Wednesday, and I'm really excited to have him here. And he's somebody who's been. Do you know Mark Hassel? Did you meet him when you were?
I
at school?
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be on Wednesday, and he's somebody who's been in the business world a long time. So I'm much more
That's
prone
awesome.
to listen to advice from somebody like him than
For sure.
somebody who has, just graduated and then went and got their MBA and then started teaching immediately.
Right.
But yeah, having said that, like you said, there's a lot of things you can do in school to learn real world skills and
100%.
help yourself, get that opportunity outside of school. So
100%. You could just be an RA. That's a great skill set to
yeah,
learn, right?
100%. Yeah, you learn how to manage people
Yeah,
and handle
100%.
fights over who gets
Be
the top
people
bunk.
named Mikey Warner.
You never beat me up. Oh man, yeah, that was. I loved having you as an RA. I really.
It was good times.
It was
How we
really
met,
good times. Yeah, you were my RA my
And then
first
we were
semester.
roommates.
And then
Good
we were
times.
roommates.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And then I got you fired. So
Uh,
maybe we shouldn't talk about that on the podcast. Anybody who wants to know that story,
Oh,
just
man.
DM me on Instagram.
There you go. There you go. That's a good plug.
Yeah. So having said that, then you're in an exciting role now, doing learning. I'm sure learning new things every single day. What are your long-term plans? How are you hoping this job will be a springboard into future projects, and,
Sure.
and where would you like to go from here?
Yeah, so I think I can boil down my kind of ambitions and passions into two primary categories. I love operating, really just building companies, entrepreneurship. I love that. I have a huge passion for it. And then I love investing. So I do have a finance degree. I've always thought I wanted to be involved investing in some kind of way, but right now I'm very focused on, I think as my career evolves, it'll definitely get more and more focused on being on the operating side of things. Eventually I would like to start my own company again someday. And it's an ambition I've always had. So I'd like to be an entrepreneur again and hopefully see more success than I did the last time.
Yeah.
And just
You'll go
continue
into it knowing a lot more already.
100%. Yeah. And so and honestly, just building, not only starting a company and making money or whatever else, but also building something that, even if it's in a small way, makes the world a little bit better for being around. Be that through the products you're creating, the problems you're solving, and the way just you treat your people. Those are just things that I want to do with my life. So that's a big goal I have. I think just in general, investing is something I want to do, but I see that being something I'll kind of do on the side and then maybe eventually get into in a more full-time capacity later in my life. But being in the startup world, angel investing is something that I'm looking to start doing a little bit on the side. So investing in other startup companies, it's a great way to, honestly, I think a great way to get started in that is just if you've got friends that are starting companies, invest in their companies. Yeah. And then just I view myself as someone that wants to kind of give back, I guess, and just or try to do things that maybe they're not necessarily for me, but are just involved in the community. So I do a lot of work in Columbus in the Columbus startup community. It's a community group that I co-founded that we're nearing about 140 members or so right now.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to talk about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I co-founded that with a guy named Nathan Zanzig. He is on the customer success team at ScriptDrop, a healthcare startup in Columbus, and we just kind of felt like we'd both got into the startup scene in Columbus around the same time and just felt that it was not very developed compared to some of the coastal startup communities, and that it had been very hard to meet other people that were interested in the same things, that were ambitious, like-minded, smart, and it was hard to meet those people. So we started this community group to just kind of bring those people together and have a spot to build relationships. So
that's awesome.
I think just doing things like that is something I'll probably always have involved in my career, but just I want to build in and invest in things that make the world a little bit better, that are cool to me and super fun. I love it. It doesn't feel like work to me.
Yeah,
so.
well, that's the thing. What better way to spend your career is
100%.
making money doing the kind of thing that you enjoy.
Oh yeah.
And I feel the same way, just about building things as far as building businesses. I love that idea of starting something new and having an idea and then kind of forming something around it and
100%.
moving it up the ladder. I think that's so exciting. Now, as far as your networking group that you're doing, you said that's mostly over Zoom, right? You're doing it all
So
virtually.
ever since the pandemic, we started it during the pandemics, first of all. So it was things, pretty much in-person things have largely been a thing of the past, at least until things get a little more settled. So what we've been doing is basically we've got a meetup group, which is kind of a place that you can host your group, and it makes it very easy for people to sign up and for you to announce things. And then we just use Zoom, and then we kind of get people together. The nice thing about Zoom is you can do like breakout rooms. So if you've got a pretty large group, you can kind of splinter into different rooms for people to kind of focus on like one topic or one subject or something like that.
That's cool.
So we've done 3 events so far. We're looking to have we've got another one coming up in January that's going to be a panel focused on careers and startups, and we've got some people from some very successful people from some really successful companies that are going to come in and talk about their experiences and give advice to people. Man. So so that's one thing we're working on. And then it's just kind of using Meetup and Zoom, but it's not as hard as you'd think to do. You just gotta put in the work to build it.
Well, that's what I wanted to highlight, is just that idea of you're living in Columbus and you found it difficult to connect and meet with people who were like-minded, you know, and ambitious like you. So you started a group, you did your own thing, you know, you started your own group for hopefully to attract those kind of people,
right?
Rather than just complaining that, oh, I can't meet anybody in Columbus who has my same interests. Well, you did something about it. And that's the mentality that I love. So I mean, how did you start a networking group? How have you marketed it in any way, or is it just pretty much word of mouth?
So pretty much it started from a lunch I had with my friend, and we both decided, hey, we're feeling this pain point. Let's just do something about it. Yeah. So I used Canva and threw together a super simple logo in like less than 2 minutes. It's basically a graphic design tool for people that know nothing about graphic design.
Yeah, Canva.com, Canva. I used it when I first started.
Yeah, there's a free version, or you can pay for it if you want to, but the free version will get you what you need for most things. And then we put it up on Meetup, which that worked out to be, I don't know, it was somewhere around like maybe $10 a month or something like that. So it's not terrible. And then that allows you to host the actual group, and you don't really need a website. You can put what it's about. You can send emails through it. All the information about the event, how to attend. So that takes care of all things hosting an event and group related. And then we bought Zoom just so we could host the meetings on something. So we got like a one Zoom license. And then from there, we just, I've got a decent following on LinkedIn. And then, so I made a post on LinkedIn and announced it. And so did my co-founder, Nathan. And then it got a lot of buzz on LinkedIn, a lot of traction. A lot of people were excited about it. But in conjunction with that, we also made a spreadsheet that basically just had the contact information of a bunch of people that we thought that we knew or kind of knew that we thought would be
maybe interested,
would be a fit for this, and that we wanted to invite. And then we sent a bunch of them cold DMs on LinkedIn or cold emails and just invited all of those people individually and personalized it to that person. So it wasn't generic, it was personalized. Hey, these are the reasons why we would really love to have you specifically. This is what we're doing. And we just sent that out to, probably a few hundred people. And then, from there, then we would just post about it though. And then, so the emails and the posting, and then we did one event, and then we kind of we posted again, did kind of rinse and repeat, and just kept doing that from there.
And now you said 140
people in the group itself. We've also got a Slack group attached to it for people to engage with each other, like offline, because it's not about us, it's about the people in the community being able to build relationships. So that is kind of a place for people to go, and you can post different news that's going on, or ask a question, or get help, or just DM someone directly. So we have that going on. And then one last piece I think I did miss there is that after the first couple events too, I know Nathan and I, we basically went through and just reached out to everybody that attended individually and just thanked them for being there in the first place.
I'm sure that did wonders. It's good to know whenever you go to an event or something that people are enjoying, that you're there, and then to be thanked afterwards. It's like sending a note. It's really, that personalizes it a lot. Right.
And I can't say it's like we're very much in the early stages of building this thing, and it's like I'd never put on an event of any kind before. Definitely not one that was virtual.
A little bit outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. So we just did it, and it wasn't perfect. None of them have been perfect, but we're getting better each time. And it's just, you just gotta get out there and do something though.
Yeah.
It's better than saying I wish this. Like if you wish something existed, well, maybe you can and
Create
build the
it.
thing you wish existed.
Exactly. And that's what I'm thinking, even just as far as, your people that you reached out to and you now have this core group of, 100 plus people,
Right.
that's valuable. There's, if you have 100 people in a group that could be like-minded and, the same kind of, drive, that is valuable.
100%.
I find that really just interesting. We were talking before about how, some people use networking groups and just the bottom line is the more people the more opportunities will flow your way. And when you make yourself someone of value like that and providing something for, a group for those people to come to, you're
Right.
putting yourself in a place of value and you're leveraging it for 150 people.
100%.
So they see you as someone who's bringing value, and you are. And I just think that that's such an interesting for anybody who's, a business owner listening or anybody thinking about it, just go create your own thing. And then I was just thinking about you. I mean, you're the host and you're looked at as in some kind of way. I go to several networking groups and the person who puts it on is like, just, and they don't mean it this way, but they're just kind of a cut above, they're the ones who are organizing everything and bringing everyone together. And it's like, okay, we're here because of them. And I just think it's cool to start your own thing and kind of set yourself by default in that kind of a position. I just think it's really interesting to me.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's cool what you're doing. I really do.
Really appreciate that.
So down the road, you said you're looking at possibly angel investing and starting your own company and
Yes,
just
sir.
big
Yeah.
thyou're coming, man.
Yeah, just trying to learn as much as I can, help people, and do things I'm passionate about, man. It's when you're doing that and you're looking at life that way, it's honestly just an incredible blessing to be alive each day.
Yeah,
so.
it's hard not to be excited about it for
Yes, sir.
sure.
Blessing's
That's awesome.
a good way to put that. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
First of all, let me see. What do you enjoy the most about Columbus? I mean, you've been living
Okay.
there for about 2 years. I kind of want to talk about that just a little bit. What
Sure,
are some
yeah.
things that you've done that you enjoy?
Yeah, so I think just one of the things that is nice about it, I'm relatively close to where my parents live and family, so that's nice. I can get down there in like a reasonable drive.
It's nice to be close.
I grew up like a huge Ohio State football fan, so the Buckeyes are right there, so that's nice. I can actually go to a game, stuff like that. I haven't done it since COVID, but that's been cool. I think their tech community is cool. It's small compared to like what's going on in California or New York, but it's there's the quality of some of the people there is really high, and there's some exciting things happening
There's things
there.
going on.
Yeah, it's a nice blend of, it's a reasonably sized city, but it's not so big that you don't feel like you're in a Chicago or a New York either. So it's very navigable. So I think those are some of my favorite things. And for being a Midwest city, there's a lot of like really good food there, surprisingly enough.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't sure
Now
what
we're
to
talking.
expect at first. So some good food. And also too, I love fall, and our falls are fantastic. So I lived in Florida, as you know, for like 4 years. So as much as I love Florida, I missed fall. I missed it getting a little chillier. So that's been probably one of my favorite things for sure.
I love it. That's such a good answer. That's such a
Yeah.
genuine answer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Hey.
Very cool, man. Okay, so where can people find you? You said you're kind of active
So
on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
there's a few places. So I've got my own website right now where I've got my blog and some other interesting things coming up soon here. So in my newsletter, all those kind of things. So you can read my different the articles I write and some of the other things that I'm working on and sharing there. So that's andrewray.tech. Then you can find me on Twitter where I'm just like Andrew_Ray, and you can find me there where I have a bunch of different tweets and stuff I put out on mainly things around startups and investing in venture capital, as well as some different things just more holistic about life and careers. And then LinkedIn as well. So you can just find me, Andrew Ray, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I share a lot of things kind of the same way on Twitter, just a little longer form content. So those are probably the three best places to find me. And then if you do go to my website and you want to email me or something like that, you can find my like emails or just slide into my
contact
DMs
info.
on social too. So
Very
just
good.
to get in touch with me there.
Sounds good, man. I love that. Fantastic. Well, we'll put the links for that in the description, the
yeah.
show notes as well.
Sounds good.
Just so people can easily connect with you. Andrew Ray is a good person to connect with, and I hope that we are able to send some valuable people your way eventually down
Appreciate
the future,
it.
and
Appreciate it, man.
we'll follow up with you, I'm sure, as
Yeah.
you visit Pensacola, and we'll see
Absolutely.
where you're going.
Yeah,
So
love everything you're doing, man. You're one of my best friends, and just I appreciate you, and
I love
you're on to big things, and it's You're a fantastic person. I'm just excited about everything you have going on.
I appreciate you, man. Every time, Andrew, every time we hang out, I just feel
Yeah.
so encouraged and just enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have a renewed confidence and just excitement.
This guy
about
has
things.
come from. I'm probably hijacking the show here.
Oh,
but
stop!
This guy has
We got to
come
wrap
out of,
up the show.
Since I remember when he dropped out of school to go into real estate and to be his own person and be an entrepreneur and all this stuff, and it just the amount of things he's done in less than 2 years of from nothing to something. I mean, now he's got his brother down there and they're working together, which he's a great guy as well. I didn't have known him as long, but just what you guys are doing, it's incredible in a relatively short amount of time, and you're just getting started. So seriously, work with these guys. They're good people and they're doing awesome things. So
well, I can vouch for him being a good guy, but I don't know.
No, I really appreciate that, Andrew. That really means a lot. And for you too, Danny, you're a good guy. We're all good guys sitting at this table here. We're just patting each other on the back. I love that. Fantastic. Well, Andrew, I'm so glad we got to make this work, and I appreciate you. Have you ever been on a podcast before?
I think this is my second time.
Okay, second time. So I was just gonna say that you seem really comfortable, and I feel like you were able to add a lot of value to the conversations that we were having. So
good episode.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.